Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new episode of What If RuneScape. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. Usually we try to come up with an idea and find a good place in the game and balance it along with the rest of the game. But this time we're going to be putting one skill in particular under the microscope. We've come up with about 20 ways to improve the fishing skill. And if you can come up with a way to add on to any of these ideas mentioned today, or maybe if you just have some of your ideas of your own, go ahead and leave those down in the comments. And guys, if we get enough suggestions, we could even do a part 2 of this video. So this is, of course, an episode of What If RuneScape. So we're going to throw out a couple of different ideas that might seem a little strange at first. First of those might actually be, you should be able to equip bait, feathers, and fish chunks. By that I mean, you have somewhere where your arrows, your bolts, and everything else goes, so why can't the bait go in there too? When you're big net fishing, you actually end up getting a lot of junk in your inventory. So much so that it's almost not worth it to fish like this for very long. So what if when you get to level 46, the ability to catch bass, you're actually able to toggle on and off if you want to catch junk. And you could probably do that at the fishing store in Catherby. And really the reason could be something like your big net mastery has improved, or some kind of funky game logic like that. In the same vein, you should also continue fishing when you check your skills guide to see what's next, what the level is for the next fish that you can catch. Checking the map doesn't stop any actions, so I'm not sure why should those be any different. Something nice and easy, move that boat in the fishing guild. Yeah, the rowboat that does absolutely nothing. Now we can connect two docks. It'd be so much easier for AFKing, and it would actually help everyone in the fishing guild to be able to talk to each other. Because sometimes people on the opposite ends can't actually talk to each other because it's too far away. All over the world you end up seeing NPCs doing skilling actions, just like the people who fish at Angler's Fish or the people who mine at Motherlode Mine. It could even be like the spirit anglers at Temporos too, just random NPCs. But it'd be really cool to see some of those having skilling pets behind them, and it would be really cool scenery, not to mention a little bit of motivation for anyone who hasn't seen the pets yet. The tackle box is an excellent addition to old school RuneScape. You almost couldn't ask for better. Except I'm about to. You really should be able to put some more tool related things a part of fishing in the tackle box. Things like a knife, roe, caviar, ice gloves, the fishing cape, a fishing mix. A fishing mix can't go in the tackle box. The fishing sack, an oily rag, and honestly, I'd even go as far as to say empty vials and water vials too, for people living that ultimate Iron Man lifestyle. It just makes sense, and for them to not include these, it really does feel like you have to have a reason for each and every one to say no to. So I'm actually super curious what those could be. Like, I understand you can't put the barrel in a tackle box because putting a storage in a storage would probably mess up a lot of things for code. But what's your excuse for the rest of the items? And while we're talking about upgrading some of our equipment, we could upgrade the barrel as well. And it's almost perfect at this point in time. But if we added a dump option, it would make it excellent for AFKing a little bit longer at aerial fishing or barbarian fishing, since most people just drop those things on the ground anyway. And it would make dropping 28 fish less click intensive. This one is simple and it doesn't really need a lot of explanation. This spot right here, to the left of the dock, at Barbarian Fishing, it should be removed. It's way too far away, and I bet some of you didn't even know that there was actually a fishing spot right here. And if we're going to talk about Barbarian Fishing for a minute, let's go ahead and address the fact that roe and caviar should be stackable, like bait and feathers, and you should be able to put it in the tackle box. I'm still stumped as to why you can't. And honestly, if we don't want to make them stackable, at the very least, make it so auto God blessed who taught you how to do barbarian fishing should be able to note the roe and caviar, and any of the fish that you are able to catch there too. You know, for keeping them for cooking or herb lore training later. Also, not to mention, the menu entry swapper is such a godsend plugin when it comes to the old school RuneScape, so it'd be really nice if we could switch the roe and caviar eat options with use, so that way it's a lot easier for herb lore. And you know, while we're talking about herb lore, because it's pretty close to fishing, as far as it goes right now, you can only make one potion at a time. And for normal potions, you have an option to make 1, 5, 10, all. So it's really not fair that Barbarian herb lore isn't updated along with that. And I'm sure a lot more people would use it if it was. One of the coolest things about this video is the fishing trawler was recently updated. So there's not much to bitch about, really. Although, I would make it so Murphy stops pacing back and forth across the boat, and put him in one specific location so that way he doesn't get in my way while I'm clicking. Honestly, it kind of pisses me off that he walks straight into my clicks, and then I start talking to him instead of fixing the ship. When you're fishing on Mulch Island, traditionally, you'd get a full inventory, and then you'd cut the fish to make more room for the next inventory, or you'd drop them if you want to make this way more click intensive than it already is. But when you cut the fish open, you should have a chance at getting a pearl too. You know, to help lessen the grind of getting the fish sack, because that's a monumental grind. Also, since I already brought up how much you actually have to click for this activity, it would be a little bit nicer just to click one of the fishing pools and it would slowly fish for you, just like every other fishing spot in the game. Even if it's slower, it's better because it's not giving you carpal tunnel. Also, when you're on Mulch Island, a notice board should appear that shows up how many fish you've caught, how many pearls you've got, and what your odds are right now to get a pearl. Because your odds to get a pearl is actually a complicated math equation, and it would be really nice if the math was done for you in-game on a notice board. Something that might be a little comical, but what if when you forgot to return the bird, it would peck you on the head when you tried to use the boat? And it could actually be an excuse to add a cool animation of the character being attacked by birds. Of course, last but not least, that actually is gonna bring us to Temporos. Believe it or not, it was a very good upgrade, and sorely needed, by the way. But there's a lot of things that they got right, and maybe a few things that could use some tweaking as well. So, we definitely have to address one phasing. It just shouldn't be a thing. If you knock out Temporos in the first round, it should automatically go back up to 1%. Because it's just plain not enough time for most people to get enough experience points to get rewards, especially if you're not cooking, you know, for max XP. Something else that I absolutely think needs looked at, the first mates and the captain's locations should be moved. The captains should be moved to the very front of the boat, and the first mates should be moved to the side of the dock. It's less of a problem with captains, but the first mates are absolutely in the way. And when you're trying to tether to the mast instead of trying to talk to this stupid mofo, it can really ruin a perfect 10-point game. Or shit, just your mood, because you know, that's just bad game design. Something that would be nice for people who keep failing at Temporos, what if when you got washed away, your buckets were refilled? And you know, last but not least, a couple of these storm clouds are in the way a lot of the times. So what if we got rid of them except for when the storm clouds create the fire? Or if we don't want to get rid of them, we can put them huddled around Temporos to make a much more ominous effect, and they'd be out of the way. So essentially, yeah, the things I brought up today are pretty much just quality of life updates, but when I try to think of ways to improve the game, that doesn't just mean making things easier. It means making things more accessible, and I hope that's what we were doing here today. So again, if you like what you saw here today, give it a like and a share, and you never know where it might go. And if you guys want to add anything to this, leave it down in the comments, and I'll see you there. Bye, everybody!